Family is Providence. Thanks for tuning in. Joe Budden, known for having no filter, and Marc Lamont Hill, an intellectual who usually drags everybody, is sitting on the JBP Rewind, basically admitting out loud, yeah, we move different when it comes to Jay-Z and Roc Nation. Marc straight up admitted he got the behind the scenes we need to talk call after previously being critical of Jay-Z. This ain't a conspiracy theory anymore, guys. That's a one big platform in the Joe Budden podcast admitting that Roc Nation and Jay-Z are untouchable in real time.
They think we scared of Roc Nation. Like, we get our talking points every day from Roc Nation.
If you want to get Jay-Z and y'all got him, I'm down. But you have to have him. Like, that's a big fish. You asking me to fuck with really powerful people that I know watch and listen to every word I say. And if not every word, certainly when their name come up. So when you have these people, I'm down.
That's how I feel. Super Bowl shit, I was on his ass. He did some other shit with the school, was on his ass. Got the call too.
Now, somebody tell the Joe Budden podcast not to have said the quiet part out loud. I don't know if they thought they were clearing their name when they recorded this segment, if they thought that they were giving a admirable response for their Jay-Z and Roc Nation coverage, but all that they did was prove people's perception as correct, that the Joe Budden podcast is in fact biased when it comes to Jay-Z and Roc Nation. And one thing that the people don't want is for their sources, their hip-hop sources, their media sources, to have been corrupted and tainted and unable to give a free and fair observation of everything that's happening because they have to answer to the powers that be. And they're scared of the powers that be. Now, I'm not naive. I know that most, if not all, media sources are biased. People in the media have relationships. They have their own beliefs, systems, worldviews that affect the way that they cover things. And there isn't probably any media source that's completely free of bias. But I do believe that it is the responsibility of the people to hold their media sources accountable, to rid themselves of as much bias as possible. And we want our media to be maximally truth-seeking in the sense that they will cover what is true. Even if they may have their own personal opinions, they will cover all that is going on and speak to everything that's happening in the culture with no filter. And the expectation is that there's no fear in covering what's happening in the culture. But when you admit that, well, Roc Nation, they're really powerful, that's a big fish in Jay-Z, we're getting calls behind the scenes, all that you're admitting to the people is that ultimately you cannot be trusted to speak the truth completely because there are people behind the scenes that are pulling your strings. And you would rather be comfortable and not rock the boat too much and not have any of your income possibly affected, not to get blackballed or targeted in even worse ways. In order to avoid that, you'd rather not say anything negative about powerful people. And that strikes me as very unfortunate. And I think it taints the reputation of the Joe Budden podcast. And Marc Lamont Hill in particular considers himself a freedom fighter of sorts. He's an activist. He stands for justice. He speaks the truth on very important political issues that affect minorities or issues that affect the Palestinians. He's going to stand up and take the criticism, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to Jay-Z, now he's scared? When it comes to Roc Nation, now he's scared? Man, I'm telling you, man, sometimes these activists, man, like Drake said, man, you ain't an activist, it's make believe. And Marc Lamont Hill goes on to say, well, a lot of the stuff, we don't know if it's true or if it's false. So we shouldn't really be speculating, essentially, is what he's saying. But at the end of the day, all of you hip hop blogs and hip hop media speculate and speak on things without knowing if it's true or not. No one says that you have to make any definitive accusations, but speaking on and talking about something is not the same as accusing someone as something. the criticism against the Joe Budden podcast is they won't even speak about certain topics. No one's asking Joe Budden and Marc Lamont Hill and everybody else on the podcast to come out and say, yeah, we think Jay-Z is such and such, or we think he did this. No one's saying that. Obviously, you catch a lawsuit if you do that. But you should feel free to discuss certain issues without consequence. People discussed all kinds of uncorroborated issues, speculations about Drake, and they'll drag Nicki and say all kinds of stuff about everyone else, but Jay-Z, I guess, is the sacred cow that you can't touch. And listen to what Joe Budden says. Joe Budden says, well, when you got him, then I'm down. In other words, he's saying, well, if we're sure that we've got Jay-Z and he's going down and he can no longer be a threat to me and my existence and my podcast, and I won't have to worry about getting blackballed or maybe even targeted in any sort of way, then yeah, I'm down to now speak the truth when I'm no longer being threatened. But if we don't got him, if that big fish hasn't been caught, don't expect me to talk. And I feel like he did the same thing with Diddy. People were criticizing him. He was notoriously silent when a lot of the stuff was being said about Diddy. Then when Diddy caught charges, and that's when he was like, okay, this guy's pretty much caught, or we feel like he's gonna get taken down. Maybe he's no longer a threat, and now I'm gonna speak the truth. And so, if that's how you operate, then people cannot look to you to be a free and independent media source that's going to speak the truth and be chasing after the truth and speaking about the facts no matter what and no matter who it's about. And so the question is, does free and fair and unbiased independent media, or in our case hip hop media, exist? I would say probably not. The closest I've seen right now is Akademiks. At least Akademiks is not afraid to speak on Jay-Z and Roc Nation. He has his biases as well, but I feel like at the end of the day, he's probably the most honest out of everyone that I've seen so far. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts. I think that at least if I can give the Joe Budden podcast some credit, at least they were honest about the fact that, hey, we're not trying to talk about these guys. They kind of said it in a roundabout way as if they thought they were defending themselves, but they only made themselves look worse. But I'd rather them do that than to be even more shrewd and try to give some other excuse as to why they're not doing it. At the very least, they've admitted, yeah, we're scared of these guys. I think it hurts their reputation, but at the very least, they were honest about that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. This has been Providence. Like the video, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.